we're going to hear from a man that knows all about Hoke County. He could write a book and it would become the best seller. Mr. Cliff Overby.
Okay, I've been asked to talk about the budget and the upcoming meeting. I was engrossed in reading this, so I'm stalled.
We could talk about it for 24 hours.
Okay, the best place I know to start would be just to say there is so much going on in this county. It's everywhere. It's just everywhere. I am currently covering everything from DSS back around and into the HATS system and the Senior Services Department, which still confuses me to great detail. Don't understand that one yet. But there's one thing I have noticed. It's attending the meetings. When they have the meetings, they talk. A lot of things are said that they pass right before your eyes, but in order to know something has gone wrong, you know there has to be a wrong that has been done. And there are a lot of them. This thing, anyway, this I'm going to read from the March 21st, 2016 meeting. Now, I will tell you that these people do and will rewrite history. The minutes disappear, they'll come back.
What are you talking about?
Huh?
What are you talking about?
I'm talking about the commissioners, I'm talking about the city, I'm talking about anybody that has a political grasp on this county. Because even the county or the city or ex-county, all of our I'm going to get off the base. All of our inspectors and everybody that are sitting in the city used to be members of the failed water team. I'm sorry, there's so much going on.
Stay on the town.
So, anyway, it's just...
consent agenda, were you going to mention that, or is that something?
Okay.
You want to read?
It does, there are, whenever they go into the... there's two things. They have an agenda that they will make, tell you what they're going to do. They're going to adopt that. They also have a consent agenda. The consent agenda is intended to take care of routine things, such as something they would do every month. Maybe they sign a letter in recognition of putting the best flag out front. It's just it's something they do all the time. No, it's set in stone and it's going to happen every time. These guys do not do that. They assign letters, numbers, different things to them. However, they also never tell you exactly what they are, even if you're there within the meeting. I am going to...
What about the proposed tax?
Okay. One of the largest things here is that in one of the meetings, Commissioner Leach and Commissioner Wright said, oh, God, have I got a good idea. The 2 cent we increased you last year on ad valorem taxes, well, that's not a true statement. That's a real property thing, kind of, sort of. Because they gave don't want to get me off on the ethanol, they gave them a hell of a gift. Anyway, what happened is back in 2014, they had a revow. In the revow, everybody's like, oh, yeah, everything will be fine. We're not going to raise your taxes. Well, sure, they're not going to raise your taxes because they're automatically going to raise themselves. Because the property went up, they reappraised a lot of the properties far more. Like, they are inflated. That is one of the first things that is written about corruption setting in, is they'll start running into these little methods. Anyway, as they moved along with that, that brought a lot more money to this county. They didn't have to raise the taxes. It was a built-in adjustment. And anyway.
And people don't fight it. People
Well,
are all trying to fight it.
You can't fight it.
But it's like you get 100,000 people and you raise 100,000 people's taxes by 2 cents, but only 2% of them actually go to fight it.
Well, they
You know what I'm
factor,
saying? So they just
they factor that in. There's what, 50,000 people in the county.
2,000.
They can only see so many people during those certain days in early May, June. So they're banking that you're not going to show up and complain about your taxes. Anyway, you're going to lose big time unless you have done an actual sale. Chances of you going up there and beating that are probably slim. So most people just leave it alone, pay the up, and keep on going. What is incredible, the commissioners made light of last year, the LGC, Local Government Commission. We're one of the few states that have that. Well, not few, they're growing. But they make sure that the counties basically aren't going to go broke or leave somebody standing. They really police up their financial stuff. Then they have rules and regulations. They have them, we don't. We sort of ignore them. If you go back into the minutes and watch and look, since somewhere around in 2003, these guys have been doing it. It's not just recent. They've been getting beaten upon for a while. So the LGC has given them guidelines that they will go by, how they will, anyway, in order to know something's going wrong, you have to know, what's going on inside of it. What they've done, whenever they made the statement that they're going to reduce by 2 cents, or I think they said 2 cents. They were going to take what they took back.
Last year they raised it 2 cents. And back in March or May, they said they were going to give it back to the people.
I don't care how you do the math. The tax, the valuation is done on per 100 of tax property. So if you take your big number, divide it by 100 and multiply it times point whatever blah, then you got a magic number. I don't care how last year they tried it. There was no way that they were able to increase the number I'm going to talk about that they have. The LGC complained because you have to have a certain amount of money in your general fund. If I type out a place, somebody tell me, you have to have a certain amount of money that will stand, that the county can pay stuff it owes in reserve for a month, I believe it is. Right. Maybe it's 45 days or whatever, but there has to be that much money held that has not been appropriated. Plus, I've also read that a new one is they asked that it be maybe a little more, a little 5% extra or something. I'm not sure about that. Just to make sure. Well, February came, they got a letter from LGC. The LGC told them that you're about to spend the last $3 million you have. Now, the state LGC requires that 8% be held in the general fund for this purpose. So we cannot look too bad if we were at that way. We were at 7%, maybe a little less. Depends on whose numbers you look at. That represented almost for the sake of it, let's call it $3.5 million. They were short. Anyway, the LGC gets on them. They say, okay, no. They write them a letter. We hear nothing about it. Now remember, this is a man sitting 20 years, chairman of the board, who runs the thing, Mr. Leach, and he blames it on, I'm off base here. So we run over And they tell everybody, oh, we're going to cut jobs, we're going to do that, we're going to do that. In June, or early July, late June, is when the news journal puts out the alarm. We're almost broke.
It was about 5.5 months before
About
the
five-
public was aware of that letter.
5.5
I have
months
a copy of it.
before we found out. I gotta go.
No, you're good. You got one. Let me ask a question is, so what do we need to do as the tax-paying
Well,
citizens?
I gotta tell you a little more.
What do we need to do on the proposed budget that's coming up? What do we
Okay,
need to do?
I gotta tell you a little more. One more second. Anyway, these guys, we go from 7%, we're under we're
In trouble.
in trouble, to what they're saying, 18 to 21%. That's 300%.
In December, Bobby Wright said.
Where
we're down
in
to
the-
18% fund balance.
I mean,
In
to
6
go,
months.
right. So they had to make from down 3 million to center, okay, or let's call it 3.5. Then to go over here, we had to make, now we're at 7 million. Now where did they find the money?
Cliff, on the, tell me, on the taxes that have not already been collected from 2015.
This is from
What
March,
is the dollar amount that has not been collected?
March 21st, 2016. This is an authorized signed meeting minute from the holier than holies.
Right.
At the time. It says total uncollected taxes for the year prior and the year standing, $4,181,829.93. That's what they didn't collect. Well, when you do a budget, you can't do the budget against something you did anyway.
You can't make a budget on stuff you don't have and have it collected.
And when they ask you to project that budget, such as the school taxes and different things, they don't have that money.
You can't project, and if you go on the list, it's some very important things.
But it should also always shorten our budget.
Right.
Another question I have for you is, what do we need to do possibly on June 20th? What's coming up on June 20th?
Here's the best thing to do. It doesn't matter what we as the community do. We can get up there, we say what you want to those guys. There is no legal, they've already made up their mind what they're going to do. They've done it.
They meet before the meeting.
The best thing that we can do is start shooting emails to Gwen McGugan, blow her email box up. We need to write some letters to the LGC and tell them our problem. They have, on numerous occasions, had town council meetings to ask a lot of questions
Town hall.
with the commissioners present.
They don't answer
They
questions.
are making, Letitia Edens made it sound as if though she has, what we're hearing about was stuff that was last year. Well, that's not true. They're getting in trouble.
2 years in a row.
No, it's more than that.
That was more.
But what they're complaining they're in trouble about now, they're in trouble about anyway. So, anyway, there's lots and lots and lots and lots and lots. I have who?
You have something else close that you'd like to say, something we need to do? June 20th, the public input session, Monday night. We need people there. I'll mention
Do I?
the public input session Monday night on the budget.
The public input session is actually a public hearing in which you can't go out of it. They're probably going to limit us really, really, really
Probably
close.
need 3 minutes.
We don't know that. They don't even have to give us 3.
Mr. Brownie, one thing that can be done that would help, and it would only help a small amount, but releasing taxes. You can't set a budget on taxes that have been billed, and then the first month you meet after you approve that budget is release so many thousands and thousands of dollars because of billing error. If they can't bill it correctly, write them up, get them out, and get somebody that can bill them correctly. Because there's no sense in bills going out of an office that are not correct. And you've also got to have people up there that aren't going to release everybody that comes with a sad story. I got a sad story too, but I pay my taxes.
They can't release them until it's voted by the board. They vote
And
on it all the
but
time.
they do, under consent items.
We're talking, but we're not talking $7 million.
Right.
One more thing, they took the hats. One thing that has really, really, really upset this thing. Hats is a major loser. You hear me, L. For years, they've lost money.
How have they lost money?
Oh,
Well,
I mean, just
talking about
explain to me
the-
how they have lost the money,
talking to the-
because that is a
I will.
Medicaid payment.
I will. First off, an enterprise account, an enterprise fund. Counties in different places have to form what's called enterprise funds, things like revenue generators. They generate revenue. That means that they should, for instance, the sewer system. Sewer system is revenue generator, it's an enterprise fund. Water system, enterprise fund. And I might say that right now the sewer system is making no funds because there's nobody hooked to it. And they're misappropriating the monies. The hats, however, was an enterprise fund. Last year, under the LGC, you're in major trouble comes, they removed the hats from enterprise and put it in general fund.
that's a no-no.
It's purely stated that in order to move an enterprise fund, that money has to be there to pay for that thing in total, and there are a lot of hurdles to go over with the LGC and everybody else. This year, right here in this budget, the hats is in there. They generated $1.2 million in revenues. Now let me explain. One of those revenue generators is $363,000 grant. They got it, but they know it has to be spent to buy new buses. They have to buy new buses because they got a grant to start the whole thing with that says over this year and this year and this year and this year you'll be in a certain thing. This is the biggest my God, it's grown the budget by $2 million. Basically, depending on what kind of facts you look at, they lost somewhere between $800,000 and $400,000.
The thing
Their
that I looked at-
riders-
The thing that I looked at was 1.4 million versus, that was their expense, and they took in 250,000.
But they also balance that grant money against that later in the thing and makes it look better. But they know they've got to spend that money, it's already earmarked. They
But your
have to
house is
spend it.
losing money.
Oh, maybe.
Big time.
It loses money.
But it's also been moved from an enterprise to the general fund. Keep that in mind. Enterprise, general fund, it shouldn't be there. That is, since how your help direct me, keeping me on track, ask me another question.
Is that it?
But the big thing Cliff wants you to do, Al is going to echo it, June 20th, you need to be down at the commissioners meeting on the proposed
Monday night.
budget, Monday night.
Here's,
Whether it does any good or not, you have to show that we have the number of people there and the force of people. We're listening, we're looking.
We're paying attention.
and if we can speak, I just got the minutes that were generated from a meeting where I spoke some things they really didn't want to hear about the LGC and stuff. They rewrote history. I have the recorded part, and I have what Gwen McGugan wrote. She's going to hear about that. They're all going to hear about it. So the biggest thing is if we can go down there and demand that we have a budget oversight committee. Let's get some people, but they're going to want to put some other people. The biggest thing, let's get the LGC in here so we can ask.
Thank you.